Rain jacket. Smart.
You're running?
No, there's a tally. Hard Rock Stadium 25, Hard Rock Stadium 24. What does it all mean? I don't know.
I started off. I know you said on Monday there's no change in the status of Byron Jones, but halfway through the season, at what point does it become just not really reasonable to expect him to return just because of the ramp up coming off that surgery?
I don't know. I'm probably the point that we stop. You know, you don't. You're there's a lot of variables at work, and you just try to give everyone the best opportunity to contribute to the team, like I know he wants to. So, yeah. If you're sick of asking it, what do you think the microphone guy is?
But is the expectation still that at some point he will be able to return?
Yeah, we're still that's still open, and yeah, I don't try to play the I react. I don't try to dictate the future. My crystal ball is broke.
Mike, how do you determine whether you have quality depth on a team, and has this team reached that standard right now?
Yeah, I think the proof is in the pudding. Quality depth to me is when, as a team, you're able to function in a certain standard, and when a certain piece is gone, are you still able to function at that standard? There'll always be, there's unique things to each and every player, and when you earn a starting position, you're not gifted that. But when teams are able to continue to progress and get better when people are out, then that's a sign of some strong depth on your entire roster. So I feel pretty good about our team. We've gone through lineup changes as much as anything I've been around, and have who knows the exact residuals, because you have a group of players, coaches, and everyone that really doesn't allow that to be an excuse. So we press forward, and I'm sure in hindsight I'll be like, whoa, that was a lot. But right now it just is what it is.
Mike, I wanted to ask you two Tyreek Hill questions, if that's okay, but not
Two
together.
what?
But not together, separately, to avoid confusion. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, so the first one is, what was the first on-field moment here when you thought to yourself, wow, this is a different guy?
Huh. That's a good one. There was... Okay, I got it. There's a particular route that, I think we came up with in 2013. Trivia fact is Leonard Hankerson against the Chargers. That's a deeper outbreaking route that not all that many people can run, because the timing of the play and to push it that deep, you don't always have protection for it. So I've been running that. It kind of got steam and ran it the most when we had Julio Jones, who was unbelievable at the route. And then seeing Tyreek in, I think it was probably OTA 4, if my training camp install schedule is correct in my brain. When he ran that, I just had a lot of deliberate reps at viewing that ran at an exceptional speed, depth, intent, and it was like, whoa. I've been fortunate to be around Andre Johnson in his prime, Julio Jones in his prime, Josh Gordon, Pierre Garçon, leading league in receiving, all of these great players, and he is different, and we knew then in OTAs that this is a different deal.
Follow-up is the same question, but off field. Since y'all met here in South Florida, what was the first moment where you, off-field moment where you thought, wow, this is a different deal?
The first time I took the trust fall and called them out in a team meeting, I think. And it wasn't a call out. I guess I shouldn't really say call out because it's not. It's more in team meetings. I think it's very important to state the facts, and the facts are what's on tape. So anything that's on tape, we should be able to discuss openly. And there was something that he didn't do. I can't remember what it was, but I vividly remember his response that day was corrected, and then. So I kind of made note of that 2 days later. I was at the beginning of team meetings and training camp. We were showing the fastest GPSs of the practice the previous day, and he was fifth that day, and so I made a big deal about. I went over the top and said something like. Dude, congratulations. You've been working hard. This is a great achievement. And then once, I think Keon Crossan was the fastest that day, so I just was like, no, actually it was Braylon Sanders at the time. Whoever it was, I was like, man, you're the fastest guy on the Dolphins. This is awesome. This is for the whole team. And then that practice, he ran the fastest ever recorded in practice here. Or that I've seen, it was like something absurd, like 23.48 or something. Like, so I was like, okay, yeah, you're different. Okay, so the on the field, off the field, it's not a happenstance that he's able to have success.
Thank you.
You've had a lot of, obviously mix and match in offensive line because of injuries, but you're starting to find some continuity now. What would you attribute the success that you guys had both running the ball and protection that have been an improvement over last year?
It's the least appealing, most real answer that exists, and it's like the down to the bones, deliberate work and intent on defensive specific techniques and how we execute our fundamentals and details. It's one of my favorite parts of the whole coaching staff is that my offensive coordinator Frank Smith has deep O-line coaching roots. Was a center himself, and I think he spearheaded that charge and really led in a moment that there was a young group that was a little uncertain of themselves. That along with Matt Applebaum and Lem and Mike Person, there's no quick and easy way to have success in the National Football League. That's why I like the game so much, is because when you see success or improvement, I should say more than anything, people are too talented and people work too hard. There's no shortcut around it. It is just they're sweating after practice for practice ends. I try to give the players a nice schedule that they can get out of the building, but the linemen aren't afforded that because they are out there working after practice, and it's to all their credit collectively, and then everybody else getting used to it. You're starting to see the skill position players be a little more productive in their areas. The running backs running in space better. It's a trickle-down effect that they can really dictate.
The challenge that they have this weekend with those edges.
Oh, yeah. This is – I know you guys the thing about the NFL is it is a challenge. There's so many things at stake every week. And so every week's a challenge. This one in particular is a lot greater than people realize. This Cleveland Browns team is no joke. They are a good football team. One of the only, I mean, the record is the record. Whatever this means is that I think they can beat any football team in the National Football League on any week, and you can't say that about every team. So they are, and it starts with their edges. I know Joe Woods and Chris Kiffin from San Francisco, and I can see their elements of coaching on tape. They strain, they go after it. I can promise you this: we comb tape week in, week out, and we are definitely not sleeping on this team. This is a good football team that, if you aren't detailed and technically sound, they will expose you in a harmful way.
Mike, I think the broadcast on Sunday mentioned how much pride you took in San Francisco in finding undrafted players. So, in honor of this seat, I do have a two-part question as well.
That's the seat. It's not your fault.
But, I guess first of all, I was wondering if you could speak to the pride that you personally take in finding those kind of diamonds in the rough, the undrafted guys that you end up adding to your team.
No, it's a cool process. I was afforded the opportunity. People had faith in me. Kyle Shanahan really put a lot of faith in me along my career. That along with Dan Quinn and then John Lynch and Adam Peters and all those guys, like, they gave me the opportunity to, say, hey, if you find a guy, we'll listen. And to me, how cool is that? You get and so it was more. I thoroughly enjoy the process, but I also just enjoy contributing to the team. So, when that's the role, it is really cool because that is. It's a challenging process. There's a lot of guys to choose from, so you're trying to find some skill sets, and then you're also trying to balance it out with your impression of the person as you reach out to people that know them or talk to sources or get to talk to them themselves. And it's not like a cookie-cutter formula, which is why I enjoy it. It was for a portion of my career, it was the best way that I could contribute to the team. So I have always taken those things extremely serious and enjoyed those.
And then the follow-up to that, I don't know how much that process changes for you since becoming a head coach, but how involved, I guess, were you in finding Cater and scouting Cater and making that decision?
All those, that's one of the reasons that being a part of the process of in so many different scopes in my career, but being in the process for a long time, you get to see how it's no person with the sauce. So early when I got here, that's why I prioritized hiring coaches. And then you prioritize having a very strong, well-groomed, well-working scouting department, and all of those things working together. So with Cater, I can take 0.00% responsibility for that one. That's Chris Greer, Josh Boyer, and all the goons involved. And but I trust them. The reason why I trust them is because I understand that my job is not to micromanage or to do everything. My job is to make people better at what they do and rely on people. That's kind of what I do.
We've heard how Tua is motivated by his doubters. How do you see him now approaching dealing with success and the praise he's received after these last two games?
Do you doubt that he's handling it well? Huh? Let's motivate that guy. It's you just have a feeling about people when you're forecasting uncharted territory. totally know, but you feel like you know. All of anything that's happening with him isn't a surprise to me. It would have been a surprise if it hadn't, just because the day in, day out work that I'm witnessing and the work that his teammates do and how his rapport is with them and all of that. But you also, it doesn't surprise me how he's handled having some success, because literally it has no distinction from when we first started working before game one, in training camp and OTAs, and that's awesome. That's what I would have guessed, but it's been really cool to see. But it's case in point. He knows exactly who he is. He knows exactly what he needs to do his portion of his job well, and he's not deviating from that at all. Very cool and good to see, but not surprising in the least.
Mike, going back to the Browns, they've been in a lot of close games. Obviously, you guys have won plenty of close games. I'm wondering, what are, I guess, some small details that make the difference in winning and losing a close game?
More points. No. That's a part of football that you don't necessarily, you're hitting on the part that isn't necessarily on the stat sheet, which is the cool part. You find that teams it kind of snowballs for teams where you can be in tight games consecutively, and you can find yourself with the same result until you get yourself out of it either way. But that, I think, being involved in those games gives you a competitive advantage moving forward when you're able to learn from them. So teams that are learning from them, whether it's high, low, or whatever, at the end of the season, they end up winning more than they lose of those, in my opinion. I think those, because it's hard. Just think about it. We're starting on, coaches start on Monday, players come in on Wednesday. We're grinding on this one objective all week that has all sorts of variables, countless number of variables, that you're learning, that you're trying to master. Then you go to this huge buildup of this competitive game that everyone is watching and being able to critique, and then just finality, one final result. When teams aren't of the right mindset, they want to point fingers. Or you learn how to not point fingers. That's something that I've been on teams that it happens a ton. Just by the tape, I wouldn't dare to speak on the Cleveland Browns. It doesn't look like they're doing that at all. So it looks like they're in the process of the same process a lot of teams are, and we are, where, okay, it's a close game, it's okay. The finality of that whole work week, you don't need to think about that. Just worry about your individual job, and collectively, the more people that do that end up finding a way. Because the biggest mistake is when people get in tight situations, tight games, and they start thinking that they need to do it themselves. And that's something that you have to learn through trial and error, and something hopefully we have learned from in our close games, but that doesn't guarantee anything. We could very well buck the trend this week. Hopefully you didn't jinx us.
Coach, it feels like each week we can make this comparison about how you're coaching against a coach that you previously worked with Joe Woods in San Francisco. I'm curious if you might have a story about your guys' year together in San Francisco.
It was a cool part of the process because it was a kind of a minor football evolution at the time. There was Seattle Seahawks, Pete, Gus Bradley, all those guys came up with the Seattle 3 deep, and just literally did that, nothing else, and crushed people for a decade. And then we had faced in our history, we were the wide 9, 4-man front, penetrating defense. Tennessee was kicking our butts in Houston back in the late 2000s, and then they went to Detroit and all that. But under Kyle Shanahan, Kyle kind of wanted to meld those two. So Joe Woods was a part of that, and it was such a cool process because you have to problem solve. It may not seem like a big deal, but in terms of gap integrity and how you rule out your defense, it was a big deal. And being there with him and seeing how he was such a problem solver in that process, while also having a disposition and energy that players gravitated to. I had heard about him since I was probably 2013, because him and Raheem Morris would always do an impression of him. So I knew of him for 7 years before I met him, and but he lived up to the impersonation and the build-up.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Coach.